the real agenda of educating black children.
Again, the right tools, you get the right results. African education. Now, that's all the good part. That's all the glory part. Now comes the hell and hot water. After the 1997 thing of paper saying how good the Detroit public schools were, how dynamic our children were achieving, it scared white America to death. And so they went on the attack. And when I say attack, they came in destroying everything. The 1999 takeover, fabricated, just like they do everything else. They fabricate a few lies, and then, of course, they get black people to believe these lies, and so black people turn over their will to let them correct these lies on their own, became about. So now we're looking at the total destruction of the Detroit public school system.
From 1999 to 2012, more than $100 million was spent upgrading schools that were closed within a few years. From a high of 380 schools in 1975, only 97 are open today. Closing a school can rapidly accelerate the decline of neighborhoods in a city that is already hollowing out. Property values drop, kids travel longer distances to school, and communities fall into disrepair.
When you tell people that you go to a Detroit public school, they always pity you. From my house to Western, it's a 2-hour bus ride. 2 hours just to get to school. I wake up at 5:30 a.m. every single morning. It is so hard trying to find a book, and then you can't take your book home. So it's really hard to do your homework if we don't have internet access. For the ones who don't have internet access, they just can't do their homework.
Today, less than 50,000 students attend Detroit public schools.
It is a big day for the Detroit Public Schools Community District as it regains control of its finances. Let's send it out to Paula Tutman for a closer look at the significance of this move.
As of 1:42 this afternoon, Detroit Public Schools Community District gained its independence from the state. When we broke this story last week, I gave the analogy it's akin to your parents finally leaving your house so you can make your own rules. And while this does usher in a new era, the parents have essentially moved down the street to keep an eye on things.
Congratulations to the DPSCD.
And with that, the signal has been sent. The Detroit Public Schools Community District, formerly Detroit Public Schools, is considered by the state of Michigan to be financially stable for the first time in 13 years.
My last point is really to Detroiters who, for a long time, deserved local control, deserved a regular, normal school district. And today's announcement is an announcement about returning this district back to where it was before it was improperly in an unjust way taken over by the state.
It started in 1999 with the takeover. David Adamati, quote unquote, president of Wayne State University, was the first emergency manager until the state came in. And so from 1999, we went from $100 million in the black. And they said they had this, and they set it up, this is how they set it up. Well, you know, there was this teacher, there was this principal, there was this administrator, there was this person who stole money from the accounts of the sports team. You know, they had football games, so they stole. Oh, and you know, they used a credit card to pay for a taxi ride. From downtown to HR and back and forth. And wow, that added up to almost, you know, $2,000, $3,000. Yeah, they stealing from my babies. You know, you gotta watch these jokers. All right.
At the end of March, federal officials accused 12 Detroit public school principals and an administrator of taking bribes from a man named Norman Shai. Investigators allege the school officials conspired with Shai to receive gift cards, cash, or checks in return for false sales through his school supply business. On Wednesday, Shai appeared in court and confirmed those accusations. Newsy's partners at WXYZ report Shai pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit bribery and federal tax evasion. Shai entered into a plea deal with prosecutors. If a judge agrees to the terms, he faces more than 5 years in prison and would have to pay the school district back almost $2.7 million in fines. As for the school officials tied to his shady business, WXYZ reports they're no longer working for the district. This corruption scandal is another knock for the beaten-up Detroit Public School District. The district is in serious debt and schools are falling apart, leading teachers to repeatedly walk out and protest.
They are accused of stealing up to $150,000 from the DPS. Take a look at some video of a raid that we first reported 2 months ago. Now, it's at the home of a former police communications officer, Robert Gibson, and it provided evidence of his alleged crimes against DPS, including using a credit card at Sam's Club and conducting a criminal enterprise. Gibson is a friend of another defendant, Eugenia Holyman, who was a DPS accountant at the Randolph Technical Center. And the former principal of that vocational school, Gwendolyn Miller, is also charged with embezzling goods and services amounting to more than $1,400. Here's what was said at the news conference.
Several weeks ago, I said, well, we have a mini cesspool of corruption. As we dig deeper into some of these cases, now we have a major cesspool of corruption in some by some of our employees.
I don't know how we can expect to raise our children properly when we have our principals and our accountants doing things that are bad as well. So it's our hope that by not only trying to return some of the money that has been stolen by the Detroit Public Schools to root out the bad apples.
The U.S. Attorney announced charges against a Detroit Public Schools vendor, an administrator, and 12 principals. Today, 3 of those principals faced arraignment. The 3 now former Detroit Public Schools principals arraigned today include 62-year-old Stanley Johnson of Southfield. He was principal at Hutchinson Elementary School. He is accused of taking $84,170 from a school vendor. 52-year-old Nina Graves Hicks of Detroit is accused of taking $27,385 when she was principal of Davis Aerospace Technical High School. And 50-year-old James Hearn of West Bloomfield is accused of taking $11,500 while principal of Marcus Garvey Academy.
Well, right now he's obviously remorseful for what's going on with the whole situation.
Hearn's attorney spoke to 7 Action News as he left federal court, where cameras are not allowed inside. All 3 ex-principals waived their right to...
Well, this video right here is our first look at the ringleader in the DPS principal bribery scandal. Franklin businessman Norm Schei had successfully managed to avoid TV cameras for the past 2 months. But today he made his first court appearance, and soon he's headed off to prison.
Native Detroiter Norman Schei graduated from Mumford High School, and there's no small irony in the fact an investigation into the principal at his alma mater became his undoing. The 74-year-old owner of Old State Sales, a DPS school supplies vendor for more than 40 years, had a very busy day in court. Unlike the 13 DPS officials involved and first appeared last month, he had one-stop shopping today. He pled not guilty in his arraignment before Magistrate Stephen Whalen. But then he went upstairs to the second-floor courtroom of Judge Victoria Roberts and immediately pled guilty to federal program bribery and tax evasion. In its plea agreement with Schei, the government is asking for 70 to 87 months of jail time. That's a range of just under 6 years to just over 7. Schei's also agreed to nearly $3 million in restitution. What's more, he also owed more than $50,000 in back taxes that he says he wrote a check for to the IRS yesterday. Afterward, neither Schei nor his attorney had any comment. Before Schei's case today, this woman on the right, Jeroma Johnson, former principal of 2 DPS schools, pled guilty to taking more than $22,000 in gift cards from Norman Schei, and now she faces 24 to 30 months in prison.
Now, Johnson admitted in court that while she did spend some of the money on her school, she also used it for jewelry and some perfume. Now, getting back to Norman Schei, he expressed no remorse in court today and also didn't have to address the issues outside of his 2009 to 2014 time frame in this case, where he might have had other problems. But he's got to talk now. He's got to help investigators with this investigation.
That happened. Next thing you know, the state came and said, we got to stop this because they're stealing. Now, let me back up just 1/2 a millennium. In 1997, 98, we did a millage proposal for Detroit Public Schools. We put it on the millage, because our buildings were old. Remember, these Detroit Public Schools were 1937, buildings 1937, 1940, so we had old buildings. First thing you can do is teach summer school in one of these buildings, because it could be hot in Detroit. So we did a military, and we put on the military $1.5 billion building bond. But again, we still in control. Now we're going to use that money to refurbish, rebuild. We got target for rebuild a couple of high schools altogether. But when they found out that money was coming, they hurried up and got in control. So here we are in 1999. They came in. They said we were accusing the money. The state had to come in and save the children from these little thieves in the temple, and so on. So we went from $1 million in the black, like I say, and within 10 years, we were about $3 billion in the hole. The state ran us so far in the hole, it was ridiculous. We fought the emergency manager control, which is supposed to only last 2 years. Now here's how they got around that. They had emergency manager law come in, even though we fought to get away. You went for 2 years, so for 1 year, 11 months, 2 weeks, the emergency manager. They got rid of that emergency manager and put another one in, and by doing so, with 2 weeks left in the 2-year period, they got a reboot for 2 more years. And that man came in and continued. And I remember they had black men doing this. So it makes it more palatable. And that's a key. They will use black people to do what's wrong. So don't think only white faces, you're going to see the white faces actually doing this. Black faces, they will use black folks to do what's wrong until they get us to a point where they want to start rebuilding, and then they put a white face in for the rebuild. Keep that in mind. That's a strategy. But anyway, that's what happened. We went through 10 years of that, even though we fought. In fact, we had it overturned to get it back emergency manager in 2007. The governor was a white governor, Jennifer Granholm. She said, okay, you get it back. We got it back. That lasted maybe 15 minutes after the vote. In November 11th, they went from PA 3 to PA 231 or whatever, 72. There was so many PA, public acts, whatever. That lasted, after we got it off the ballot in November, by December of that year, it was back on the ballot as a line item. And that made it almost impossible to get through. So this is what they did. And so at the same time, our children, they came in, the first 2 emergency managers gathered all the African-centered textbooks we had created. All of them. They went from school to school. Now, they wasn't in every school, but a little bit. Some schools there was in more than others, I put it that way. But eventually, they went to school, and they collected all the books dealing with our culture, our pedagogy, our understanding of teaching and education, and they stacked them in a warehouse. Now, they said, oh, yeah, you can come and get them, but you really couldn't go get them. They really was not there. I mean, you had to have somebody open the building for you to get in there and get them. So long story short, they basically scorched and burned the whole African-centered community right out of the Detroit public schools. And so from that point on, they started going back to Houghton Mifflin, all these publishers, printers, all these new publishers, and hey, we want to develop a whole new set of books, a whole new set of curriculum, and we'll pay you for it. And of course, business is business. You gonna pay. If you pay, you say. So, you know, those contracts are now awarded to these white publishing companies, and so the African-centered curriculum eventually faded to black, faded to white. Well, it just faded. But those are the ways that they kind of overcame. So for that lasted up until 2013, somewhere in that area. I think the last one, and this was funny. We're talking about those emergency managers. Let me give you a little history on that part. The last emergency manager was supposed to be down there early. Again, a black man from way out of nowhere. But his fame, before he became emergency manager for Detroit, that he was a part of the Flint water scandal. Now, I know you all don't know nothing about Flint water scandal. So, suffice it to say, the governor at the time decided it would be a good idea to change out the Flint water pipe system from the water department and have it connected right to the Flint River. So you had the water coming directly out of the river into people's homes.
Quote, let me not mince words. This is a racial crime. If it were happening in another country, we'd call it ethnic cleansing. Explain what you mean.
Flint is a majority black city. This is a very poor city. Officially,
but they weren't trying to hurt them. I'm just saying in terms of ethnic cleansing.
I don't believe there was a want-to-see conference where they sat around the table and said, hey, what should we do today? Let's poison Flint.
Right.
But what they did do is they made a decision, just like the car companies, just like lots of people, where they go, what's going to cost us more? Putting the $7 part in the car or the lawsuits we're going to get from the accidents it's going to cause? Yeah. This is a cover-up. It's fraud. It's a version of manslaughter now because we have 10 people that have died from Legionnaire's disease. 87 cases. Well, the doctors now are saying, yes, it's connected to this Flint River water. I mean, it's just, they could have fixed this at any point in time, but once they saw that they'd made the mistake, I think like a lot of politicians, they figured these people are poor. They didn't vote for us. They don't have any political power. And so, you know, we'll see what we can do. Because his first statements, when this first got revealed, he said, oh, you know, lead is seasonal. That was one of his first lines. Nobody knew what that meant. Then he says, well, you get lead from paint, you get lead from this or that or whatever. He tried to cover it up, tried to change the subject. Again, here we are sitting still talking about this. Flint doesn't need bottled water sent to it. All right? We need those pipes replaced.
Now, you talking about that ain't scary? That's scary. But this brother was part of that whole, again, use a black face to do what's wrong, because we'll accept a black face doing what's wrong. So after doing that, and that scandal fell out, so they was moving him down here to Detroit, and he was going to be supposedly the last emergency manager for Detroit Public Schools. I was there right off on East Jefferson, whichever one of those schools there are. I tech schools over on East Jefferson. I was there with those sinister ministers and those crooks with books. I called all them pastors. I'm going to call them what they are. They were with other Bullocks and Bullock Jr. and a few host other black ministers. They were there and they were welcoming down there early that day. They had a big luncheon. I had a suit on, so they thought I was a pastor, so I was able to get in there. You know, like that. You just wear a good suit. You look good in a suit. So I went in there and Early asked him, Bullock asked him, what is it that the emergency manager can do for us? And Early sat there and told him, all you got to do is just be quiet, basically. Just be quiet. Say nothing. Okay, and that's relevant going back to King's last speech before he was assassinated, how impactful how meaningful the black churches were at the time. So he said, okay. So lo and behold, they was real happy and said, okay, we were going to be quiet. But he Early did say, I will send a representative to your church on Sunday. Now, everybody know what that means. You're going to be the money man. So I'm going to pay you. I'm able to facilitate your church on the backs of our children by, bringing the money and, you drop it into the offering box. Put it in the building fund. Every church got a building fund. Or a pastor appreciation. So, that's how they got the exchange of money. But lo and behold, God said, I think he should not have put God in there, because when he did that, the whole Flint water scandal broke. So the governor of England at the time decided, okay, we'll throw the one black person that we had under the bus, and that was down there Early. So before he actually came to power as the last emergency manager for Detroit Public Schools, he disappeared. Literally. He ran out of town. So that's when they had to bring old Judge Rose to fill. He was the last person we dealt with as far as the emergency manager state. But I say all this to let you know the depth that they'll do to go back to destroy the ability to teach our children properly. And we've been slowly under the gun ever since those moments. And so as we look back now in hindsight, we realize that there were a lot of things that we could have done better. There was a lot of things we could have definitely had to hold on to. But we trusted the wrong people to see after our interests. We put our guard down. We started doing the Prince thing. We started partying like it's 1999 and we don't want to stop. We thought we had made it. We thought we were over the hump. Then guess what? They gave us Obama.
This is a CBS News special report. I'm Katie Couric at CBS News election headquarters in New York. And we have breaking news, momentous news, really. CBS now estimates because of victories in California, Washington, Oregon, and Hawaii. CBS projects that Senator Barack Obama of Illinois will be the next president of the United States. He defeats John McCain, the senator from Arizona and Vietnam War hero. And no matter whom you voted for, you'd have to agree this is an incredible milestone in the history of this country. A century and a half after the Constitution abolished slavery and guaranteed blacks the right to vote, 4 decades after the passage of the Civil Rights Act, voters have chosen our first African-American president.
Ooh. They gave us Obama to really take our minds off the struggle. Oh, we done made it now. It's post racism now. It's like, oh, racism going away because we got Obama in office. Again, a way of clearing the road for what they're able to do now.